TV, and knowing that someday I would be serving in some capacity. At that point, I didn't know who Jesus was. So it was just, let's go serve and volunteer and help these people. However, when I came to know Jesus the summer before my sophomore year of high school, I came to understand that God had a lot more than just volunteering, that it's a bigger mission, and that God had that mission for me to go international someday. He never told me at that point when that was going to happen, but he was asking me to give my life to full-time ministry and mission. And so I went off to school, to Bible college, to study ministry, to study the Bible, and also study educational studies. While I was in high school, I had looked at different organizations to go with overseas to different parts of the world, mainly Africa. That's where my heart was. And of course, not a lot of parents are going to let their 16-year-old go across the world to a third world country and serve. That's one barrier, but also it's money and also it's time. When are you going to go? How are you going to pay for it? So during my sophomore year of college, I was asked to apply for through a trip through Campus Crusade to serve in East Africa, in Tanzania. And at this point, I had knew that the Lord had called me to Africa in some area. Didn't know where. I knew that the Lord had called me there for life. I didn't know when, but I knew that once I got there that I'd be serving there forever, that I'd have a family there, that I'd live there, that I'd die there, that I'd serve there, and that's where I'd lay my life down. But before my first trip, I had all these questions to God. What if I don't like it? What if it's too hot? What if I don't like the people? What if the people aren't nice to me? What if I don't like the food? I was a very picky eater, didn't eat meat at that time. So I was like, what am I going to do? But I'm like, God, you've called me here for life forever, so I'm going to trust you with whatever the case is. Well, if you know God, of course he proved my little trust wrong, and he showed me many things the first trip I was in Tanzania. I became broken for the people of Tanzania, and I became bored of everything but Jesus. Opportunity after opportunity fell in my lap to be a witness to the people there and also other missionaries there and expats that served there. His promises and call came true to the life that I knew he was calling me to, and he was showing it to me in ways that I hadn't seen before. So now we fast forward 2 years. I'm graduating college with a degree in biblical studies and educational studies, which leads me to my wedding day in June in Tanzania, and then leads me to a life of living on mission with God and for God in a village church and with a nonprofit called One Redeemer, fighting for the lives of widows and orphans. But I'm not just going there to be Renee, the missionary in Africa, but that's where my life is going to be. And so I think that's super cool to see that this is just the place where God has chosen for me to live my life, and you can do missions all over the world. So I live in a small village of about 350 people called Nishupu, which actually means baboon. So sometimes people will laugh at that and be like, you live in a village called Baboon. And I'm the soon-to-be pastor's wife of a small church of about 75 members. So as a couple, God had showed Nehemiah, who's the name of my fiance, and I, that our mission, his mission for us is to raise up the church that he had planted. It's very spiritually dead. And the church is just people who come in on Sunday, and when they leave, they want absolutely nothing to do with their neighbors. They don't want to serve them. They don't want to help them. They just come to church on Sunday, and they leave. They want nothing to do with the children in their church, which is where my heart is at. So God has called us to be the hands and feet to raise up that church, to show our passion for Jesus, to multiply the people in the church and multiply the gospel. So there are 2 projects that God has given Nehemiah and I under the church to do in our local village, and 2 of the projects are the widows and orphans, based on James 1:27 is where we got our passion from, is caring for the orphans and widows in distress. And so we have a widows home building project, and so we're working with some of the widows in our village to reconstruct their homes so that they're able to live on their own and provide for themselves, because right now it's the number one population in our village, and they're living on timber. They're living in small little just pieces of timber that cover them while they sleep, or they're living in a house with one room crammed with 10 or more grandchildren, and they're not being taken care of. And then our second group of people that we are hoping to raise up the church to serve are the kids in our village. There's either kids in our village who don't have any families at all, or in a family that are super, super big and they're not being taken care of for. So we're hosting a pre-primary school within our church and giving kids the opportunity to be able to go to school who wouldn't get to go to school. So as leaders of the church, God's mission is for us to raise up the church members with a passion to serve and love their neighbors, which I feel we all have that same passion wherever we are. We want the church to serve. So Nehemiah and I's biggest prayer for the church is that they would become wrecked for Jesus, which I love that phrase. One of my professors had said that before. And bored of everything else but Jesus. We have two mentors, a mentor family or mentor couple in Mexico that are serving on mission, and they've taught us a few things about how ministry is recreating ourselves wherever we are. So we need to go out and do multiplication, basically, and raise up people like us to go and share the gospel to the next generation, to the next generation, to the next generation. And so one of my favorite things that I think about when I think about God is that he's already in Tanzania. So I'm not taking God to Tanzania. God is in Tanzania. God has already brought a Savior for these people, but I get to work alongside the Savior and work for the Savior to show his glory within this beautiful country and this world. So that's where I'm at today with missions in Tanzania, and I'm moving there at the end of May. And I'm so excited to just that be my home for the time and serving Jesus there, as long as just sharing the gospel. I'm so thankful for this church that has supported me throughout high school and throughout college, and you've continued to pour into me and walk alongside me to continue to be able to serve. So for that, I'm thankful. Thank you.
And I certainly believe with all my soul that God is going to use Renee through her life.